What's going on, guys? In this video, I wanted to bring in a good friend of mine. This is Crew Daniel. He's the owner of Denver Muay Thai here in Colorado. And like I say, I always research what you guys are searching and looking up. And a big thing that everyone's kind of looking into consistently nowadays is how to improve your roundhouse kick. You know, I love that Muay Thai has become so big internationally and specifically here in the United States. So there's a lot more people searching that stuff. And if you look at my channel, you see that I've provided a lot of tips on mobility and drills that I use and all this other stuff, but that's me. So, you know, I'm tapped into a lot of people that I could talk to kind of share their knowledge. And Crew Daniel is one of the most experienced people that I have the privilege of spending time with. So I wanted to kind of bring him in and have him show you or provide you with some different tips to help improve your roundhouse kick. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Crew Daniel.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Sawadee.
Swadee Kap, guys. I mean, you've probably seen most of these exercises, and Crew Rad has a great channel. And if you just go through his content, you'll find some amazing drills and exercises as well. What I have to share are things that I developed over 15 years of teaching how to do the round kick, how to improve your round kick, how to properly execute it. So the three things that we're going to start off with is one of them is mobility, and it's important. It's a fact. Your round kick has to have some kind of portion of mobility. So the second part we're going to go over is the structure, the mechanical function of the round kick. And then the third thing is how to apply it, how we're going to apply this on the bag, into drills, and even in your sparring. So the first thing is we're going to talk about range of motion and mobility. So what I like to start off my classes first do is get into like an S position. So I'm going to be on the floor for a second. And if you can see me, I'm going to have one leg forward and one leg back here. Usually I tell my students to come before class and just hang out here for like 2 minutes and one side, 2 minutes the other. When they start feeling, they'll like check their phone, they'll be on their calls, whatever. And then eventually I'll start having them go forward, leaning into a little bit. You'll find the outside of the hips start, stretching a bit. The goal here is to really press that knee and press that foot to the floor. And then when you're ready, your hand stays, and then you just switch to the other side. So you'll be doing this exercise, to like 1 minute, 2 minutes. You'll be leaning back a little bit, pressing forward, hinging at the hips. Once you got a good idea of this down, then I tell my students, okay, so then you start doing your hip bridges. So from here, you just start lifting your hips, squeezing your glutes. If you need your hand to assist you, to help you counterbalance, that's fine. But right now, you'll find the expression of the hips opening up a little bit here. You feel that, Chris?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And then I set back down, and the same thing on the other side. And then now it becomes more of a dynamic movement. We don't want too much static stretching. We want a little bit more dynamic. And then that's how we start warming up. And the same thing in my jiu-jitsu classes too, actually, to be honest.
I was going to say, I do this for jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it's actually a really good one for jiu-jitsu as well. Okay, so after about like 3 minutes or so, then I'll have them stand up. And notice how when I stood up, I never used my hands. So that just shows the range of motion of my knees and my dexterity of my knees and hips. The next one we're going to work on is just raising the leg up and then opening it out. And you might think that I'm actually focusing on this leg, but actually I'm actually focusing on this leg. I want to stabilize my ankle, and I'm pressing the balls of my ball, my foot to the mat, and the other 4 fingers are spreading out. So think about the ball, the foot pushing, and the other one spreading out. So almost like my heel is slightly coming off the ground. So when I lift, I'm just lifting a little bit. And when you get really good at this, then you'll pick it up to the outside.
Yes, sir. I call that the bottom leg. I call that the foundational leg.
Yeah.
The foundation that holds up your structure.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly, Crew. Yeah, so that's like, as you can tell, Crew's doing it. He's just really working on that ankle lifting that knee, and just getting those body to warm up. And you're trying to not teeter too much. As you can tell, the balance is there.
Yes, sir.
About 1 minute one side, 1 minute the other. And then the last one's a classic one that I like. It's just doing like axe kicks. So I just kick my leg forward and then kick down, kick my leg forward and kick down. And when you're kicking it, you're trying to keep your leg straight and then just whipping down. Yeah. And by then you start feeling a lot better from that.
Yes, sir.
That's how I usually have them prep. We do other dynamic stretches, knees up, jump rope. But for the most part, mobility is part of your round kick. Having strong ankles, stability in your feet is another big part. Let's talk about the structure now. So the common shape that I see quite often in Muay Thai is triangles. So if I were to be in my stance, if Crew and I were both in our stance, if we had a third leg, our third leg would be right over there because we have one point of the triangle, the other point of the triangle, the third point would be there, okay? The next thing is you're making sure your hips are facing front for the most part in Muay Thai. And imagine like a triangle. So it's 2 points. The last point is here. So if your hips are facing this way, your round kick is going to be a little more delayed and you're going to have to expend more back to kick. But if my hips are in the right place, everything's lined up. My structure is good. So quite oftentimes, I can have my toes in the right direction, but my hips are facing this way, which is in Muay Thai, you can kick. I'm not saying you can, but and it requires more back and more like lifting of your body to do this, to kick. Whereas if like I'm here, I'm already square and my body and my hip in line for the kick.
Yeah, that, you know, I've never thought about it. That's an amazing concept. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always teach, you know, we stand square and then you step back and 45 degree. I always explain that. But a triangle, that's awesome. And even when we did Muay Baran, when I was doing that in Thailand, you know, the triangle, everything was the triangle, you know, right here. To where they wanted our, Baran was odd because, you know, they wanted our hands in like a triangle like this. Man, that's a great concept.
Yeah.
Nice. That's nice, Crew. Thank you.
So now on the structure of the kick, now we have our triangle set. Here, triangle, triangle in our feet. Then the automatic is a step. So once I step, right, watch my right arm. Now you might be thinking, is he elbowing? No, I'm just prepping. I'm prepping my right shoulder to be in connection with my hip and my foot. So I'll do a demonstration of the kick. So I'm here. Right, and you'll see how Crew also is loading up the body and getting that twist for that motion, right? This hand, as it's going through, it actually becomes a guard as well. If it has to function also as a guard, because if someone were punching you at the right moment, you have some form of guard to avoid that. And when you whip, there's two ways you can whip. One, you can whip over the shoulder to express more, or two, you can whip past the hip to express more. Whichever works better for you. But the non-negotiable is getting that shoulder to move into position. Yes, what do you think, Crew?
That's beautiful, beautiful. There was someone who made a comment, and this is just, you gotta take things with a grain of salt. Like the Dunning-Kruger effect. Like people think they know more than they know. And somebody mentioned that they thought I was dropping my hands in one of my kicking video. And what it is they don't realize that when my hands are going like this, it's loading, it's momentum. And when I was taught, we were doing drills like this, right? And it was very traditional. And then you swing your hands this way, and then you kind of doing drills like that, right? That's like very beginner stuff. So without needing knowledge, they assume I'm dropping my hands, right? But to what you said, no, there's a block here, but we're loading, right? And when you load, right? And I go high if I go to the body, and if I go to the head, I swing down. Yeah.
Just counterbalance up.
Yes, sir. Yeah, absolutely. That's great. I like the elbow. I think I tend to be a little more like this, but when I tried it the way you just showed it, it's a little tighter. I like it. Yeah. That's one difference I like.
Choke is the rip. Choke.
Yeah.
So that's like the ripping motion, like a lawnmower.
Yes, sir.
So now, as I'm here, the last placement is once I load, right? And like Crew said, this hand can drop. It's not saying it doesn't have to stay up, right? People try to kick like this too. I find it personally too clogged.
Yes, sir.
Too clogged. So I've seen people kick this way. Some people drop, but again, it becomes a guard, so you're kind of safe. Now, once I kick, this is actually really interesting. I had one of my good friends from Thailand visit our school. He has like close to 50 professional fights. Multiple champion, fought Raja. He brought up a really good point that I learned from him. So when the foot is in position, right, I need to press on that foot. Now, you might be thinking, how are you going to pivot? But because your weight is going on the ball of the foot, you're committing to the kick. So now that I've been drilling more this concept, I'm pressing and then whipping.
Yes, sir.
And so now I have more momentum, believe it or not. You might believe like, oh, well, don't you want to just step and pivot? And no, the more you drive your toe, it's just like a punch.
Yes, sir.
On the right side. The more you twist hard on that toe, your body's going to go with it.
Yes, sir. It comes off the march.
Right, right.
You know, you're off your march and you
Bang.
step. And then we covered that in a video that we released a few weeks ago or last month about exercising, getting the Achilles strong. Because when people start kicking flat, sometimes it's just a load capacity issue. They don't have the stamina to keep kicking and elevating. So then suddenly you see these flat kicks.
Right.
When you need to drive in here and elevate, right? And one drill that I do to work on that sometimes is, you know, I just pivot like that because I don't have the full kick yet. So again, a lot of instructional, but I love that you pointed that out because that's something that, I was taught from the get, and then you explode. Everything comes, like I say, all strikes come from the earth. Right. Drive it from the earth upward.
Yeah,
that's a very good point.
That's that's one point that's why your kick might not be as efficient as you want it to be, because you're probably doing everything great on the rear side, but maybe you're neglecting the lead side.
Yes, sir.
Once the step goes, you rip, and then now everything becomes loose, and then it contracts the last second. So as I'm here, my tailbone's tucked, my body's in position. Once I press, I press, and then I'm relaxed. Once I'm done with my kick, once it meets the center line, and then the snap happens, then I relax myself to accelerate to come back. So what happens also is I see some of my students, they get super stiff on the kick. Remember, it's a whip. It's a whip. It's a hard whip, of course, but it's not like a motion. So I'll give you an example of what I tend to see from my students who overstiff themselves. So they'll be here, and they'll do everything right. They know how to press their toe, and then they just go.
Yes, sir.
They go stiff, right?
Yep, see that more than you should.
Right? How do you work with that, sir?
No, so you're spot on. And actually working with Master Tran years ago, referred to it as a dragon's tail. So same thing. Width,
oh, yeah.
Right? And sometimes I like that you mentioned speed on the back end. I miss that sometimes. Even when hitting bags or pads, I don't rip this back fast enough. I started to stop doing that because I didn't want to turn into like a snap kick.
Yeah.
But you have to like find
Yeah.
You hit through and then you whip it back faster to get your balance back, right? And be ready for the counter strikes. But whipping through, speeding up at the end again, that's a new one that I didn't think about, that I definitely need to work on myself. So I'll like whip and then you see how I slow down.
Yeah.
So accelerating at the end, that's a new tip for me that I need to hear, boom, and then coming around. Yes. Yeah. Nice. I like that, sir. That's good. Yeah. Yes.
And that will get you more comfortable to just get that rotation going. And now we're going to apply it. So the application of a round kick, I tell my students, the ones who compete, even in sparring, like you don't have to kick 100% all the time. Sometimes your kick is 70%. Sometimes your kick is 60%. Sometimes it's 100%. Not every kick has to be 100%. The reason because like sometimes you're setting up a kick. Your kick is setting up a punch. Your kick is setting up a different attack. So if your kick is 100%, one, you might not have the proficiency yet to hide it, right? Like a good Thai who has like over 20,000 reps. You can't notice if the kick is a hard kick or a soft kick. But also on the practical use, you get to work on which stabilizer muscles are working in your kick. So the first thing I'm gonna work with Crew is a partner drill, and then I'm gonna work on the bag. So Crew doesn't know what we're doing, so he's gonna just wing it with me. So,
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So the first thing is I'm just gonna learn how to apply it. So because of his stature and his size, I'm just going to go to his ribs. I'm not gonna go anything to his head, just for practical purposes. You can apply this to the low kick concept as well, but for me, the middle kick to me is a big mark of Muay Thai.
Yes, sir.
So the same thing, I use him as a point of reference. I'm using that stabilizer toe, and you can tell how my shoulder is going to load up, and then I release, and I'm back.
Sir.
Back. And I'm back. And you can tell how my shin is wrapped right behind his ribs, almost behind his lat. That's a clean kick. The reason I retrieve it back also, I work on my retrieving muscle because I don't want him to catch.
Yes, sir.
Right? I don't want him to catch. I don't want him to like hold on to any kind of connecting to my leg. So I'm working on the motion. I'm working on the hip. I'm working on retrieving. So again, so up here. I might even have to tap his hand a little bit just to kind of get the range down. And then I kick. And I'm back. 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 Not losing, and every time, not losing position. So I'm not too far away. I'm not too close anymore.
Yes.
I try to fire from position and keep it here. Quite oftentimes you'll see someone kick, boom, and then they're like,
yes,
go
sir.
all the way back, right? No, I like to tell my students to stay in the pocket, make them uncomfortable. Sometimes will people kick, and then they'll end up too close.
Yes, sir.
You know, so try to find that way of keeping that range. Maybe have like some kind of you know, string or something like that, a belt or something, just to kind of keep that in mind.
Do a hula hoop, or we did like a jump rope, and you make a circle, and you keep your, you know, you keep your range. Or I tell people, imagine that there's like a rope between us, and as soon as we know the distance, like, and that's, you gauge your distance just like you mentioned. This is why, guys, on pad work or drills, you see a lot of experienced people tapping. Sometimes we high-five each other. That's perfect distance, right? Or I'm touching his lead hand, right? And I know how far I am. And once we establish that distance, I know to stay that distance. If he backs up, I move that distance. If I back up, he moves that distance. And you can drill like this. And we learn to stay at this distance. You understand over time exactly where to be. Beginners have to check. Advanced people, Crew Daniel will step right up to me. He knows exactly how far to be. From me, from a pad holder, from a back. He doesn't have to check. That's just years and years of training. His body has not changed. I tell this to my students all the time. You're an adult. It's not going to change at this point, right? I think your growing is done. So once you establish your range, you understand what your range looks like. Then you again, stay in there, right? Stay on that rope, right? Too far away, then you always have to dart in. You always have to fight your way back in when you come out. So it's a great point to bring up, sir. Thank you very much. Distance is crucial, especially for Muay Thai, because the roundhouse kick is our like most valuable weapon.
Yeah, and then on the receiving of like the round kick, like, because I judge and officiate a lot of Muay Thai fights, and so on the judge and official perspective, like a low kick does cause damage, but it has to disrupt their structure. If you low kick someone, boop, that's a clear point. That's a clear advantage. But if you're low kicking and you are landing, and they're not checking, but if they round kick you, and they make a clean kick, most of the time, in many organizations, they're going to favor the person with the round kick.
Yes, sir.
So like some of you guys are very big low kickers, great, but it has to show damage. It has to show disruption of structure. But if you want to like have a solidified ending to your round, to your exchange, throw a round kick, finish with a hard round kick, or it might even just a right cross, something like that that disrupts them. Usually we pick the round kick because it's a bigger, heavier limb that generates more power. Yes. Last part is going to be on the bag. Which bag should I use?
Whichever you like, sir.
Okay. This one's big.
Yes, I'm gonna yeah, I love. That's my favorite bag
Shout out
here.
to Outslayer.
Yes.
Guys over there hooked me up at my school too. They gave me a really nice big white bag that my students and I, we get after it. We hope to have one of these bad boys in our school too. But so now that we're in position, right? We have all stabilities. We have the position of our feet, positioning of our hips, the positioning of the body weight moving, the stabilizer. So now the prep of the arm, right? So an exercise I like to tell my students is be here. And then I'll have them with the opposite hand go to the outside of the ribs, of their, tricep, and I'm going to ask them to pull, feel that tension there. So right now I'm pulling with this arm and pushing with that. So then you'll engage your core. And now when I release, is this muscle. So here, that's the rip. So the secret that I found is that they'll do everything right. They'll twist their hip, but notice there's no coil of the upper body and lower body. By having that low position, this arm is getting pushed. And then when it goes, the hip is going to go with it. If the stabilizer is not good, then you're going to pull yourself away. A bad example is this.
Yes.
Away.
See that all the time, sir.
Right?
All the time.
The stabilizer is the anchor for your weight to go forward. How do you pair this up in sparring? So for myself, I'm more of a traditional Muay Thai sparring person. So I'm more in my shell, teeping. And then when I'm ready, I try to use my longer weapons. My lead jab, my teep, fire. The range that I'm using, right? The range that I'm using doesn't change for my kick, really. So I'm not here boxing. I'm not kneeing. So I'm touching. Using your jab, using your teep, and then into your kick.
Yes, sir.
Use that on pads, use that on sparring. You'll find a little more success with your kick because you're in the proper range and you have not much tail in your kick anymore. Whereas before, you're trying to maybe do the jab cross hook, but you're off range. You're like trying to punch and then you're trying to kick, but you're too jammed, or you're trying to like throw a hook and then you're leaning back on the kick. So I like to use this as a foundational tool. Your lead hand, your lead leg, and then fire the rear leg and back in position.
That's all three, sir?
That is all three. We have the mobility, we have the structure, the mechanics of the kick, in my perspective, and then we have the application you can do on the bag. You can work with a partner. You can apply the same thing on the pads. I would probably say one last thing, we have some time, is have patience.
Yes.
Have patience. Patience with your kick, patience. Even to this day, I am still practicing my round kick.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I say that all the time. I tell my students, you will never have, there's no such thing as perfection, right? You will get it great, but then you'll start focusing on your boxing, which you and I, you guys, I've mentioned this before, but Crew Daniel is also a crew fester like me. He's a black belt in BJJ, so we both do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. We both box. You step away from a certain skill sets for a moment to sharpen other weapons, and things fall, right? Mm-hmm. You lose some agility, you lose some balance, and you have to go back and sharpen that weapon again. Like anything else, things get dull. So you have to keep going back. And then when you're going back, you're learning from, like, there's a few things I learned today from Crew Daniel. And I have a pretty solid kick because I work on it on a regular basis, but now I have something to add to it. And I love the part where you said from your perspective, because everyone thinks they have the perfect answer or one way of doing it. Let me be clear about this. There's not one way to do anything, right? How do you get to 10? I always say this, 5 plus 5, 8 plus 2, 9 plus 1. There's so many ways, as long as we get to the intended purpose. If we get a good roundhouse kick, one of my first coaches was teaching me, I'd like to do, he didn't speak great English, so he's always the number 11, and I was taught to stand here, and I still do that because that's a boxing stance for me too. It's easy to shift in and out of my boxing, but I went and trained with another crew, and he did not like this at all. He wanted me at triangle like this, and I didn't like having my ribs exposed, but some coaches like that because they want the catch, and they train that catch heavy, so they teach you to fight like this. It's not wrong. It's different. Okay, and then you have to create your style. I'll end with the whole the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, my favorite thing from Bruce Lee. Yeah. Take what is useful, eliminate what is useless, and make it essentially your own. And that's the beauty of martial arts. But you have to be patient and you have to keep training. I'll turn it back over to you, sir.
Oh, no, that is all. Thank you so much, crew, for having me over again.
Always, always, yes.
Yeah, just a quick cheap plug here.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
I have a YouTube channel. It's Coach. It's called Coach Daniel Chacon.
Yes.
You know, I have some videos up there of me of some drills as well. So feel free to look at those.
We'll make sure we put that in the description as well.
Oh, thank you, sir. I don't have as great content as crew here, but you know, check it out, see if you like it.
Thank you very much for your time. As always, please be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll keep this thing going.
Thank you, sir.
And I appreciate you stepping onto my platform as well, sir. Thank you very much.
You, sir.
All right, guys.
Come,